In this episode of Need to Know Influencer Marketing, we're going to discuss whether micro-influencers are a scam or not. Hello, marketing fanatics. I'm Mark Fidelman with Fanatics Media. Joining me is Gil Eyal, CEO of HYPR. How are you doing, Gil?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mark.
So, a controversial topic that came up this week from Digiday. They interviewed, of course, an anonymous marketer who claims that micro-influencers are the biggest scam in the industry. What's your initial thoughts on that?
I think it's nonsense. I think a lot of people have a lot to lose if micro-influencers win because they've invested so much in representing big influencers that cost a ton of money and don't produce results, and suddenly there's something that they can't do because activating 100 small influencers is a lot harder than one big one. And so the easiest thing to do is say, oh, it's a scam. It's, but really everything shows that it's much better and more effective than other channels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're using the micro-influencers or how they're choosing them. So I'll differ a little bit slightly from you. I think maybe that executive is using micro-influencers that have fudged their numbers, or maybe they just bought a bunch of them and said, hey, I'm an influencer. I mean, there's no certification for influencers. You got to prove it by your work in the field. So I don't know if that's the example, but I agree with you in that if you choose the right micro-influencers, by far they're the most effective. It's just finding them, corralling them, and getting them to work on your behalf. What we use micro-influencers for is to amplify Tier 2 and Tier 1 influencers to show that the content is now basically everywhere within an industry. And that I think is the best way to use micro-influencers. Unless you're a small startup and you just want to test the waters and get started, then find the right micro-influencers. I would use HYPR, as we've said numerous times, and then find the ones with high engagement and start to build relationships with those guys. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, and you might be right about this particular case. I think the challenge is that with big influencers, you look at them, you can pretty much guess what kind of audience they have, what they talk about. But when you start activating these smaller influencers, if you don't have audience data and you don't really know how to find the right ones, you kind of pick them randomly, of course you're not going to do very well. So it's quite possible that in this case, he just doesn't have the right tools to do it. Because when it's done right, statistically, it's very easy to show how the results are so much better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even like these anonymous sources. Why not just come out and say who you are? I mean, it's not that controversial a subject. And he didn't expose anything really that was too dramatic. He just made a dramatic statement, and that's what I think is what all the buzz is about. But again, it's about how you use these micro-influencers and choosing the right ones. I think I'd say 30-40% of them are just fake. They've got fake followers. They did it for ego reasons. And that might be who he's working with. Maybe he doesn't use HYPR. He doesn't know how to find the ones that are engaged.
Yeah, I mean, you and I say controversial stuff all the time. We don't hide behind anonymity, and I think that's why I raised that idea that maybe there's somebody who has something to lose here. I agree with you. Fraud is a big issue in this industry as well because it's built in a way that incentivizes influencers to look bigger, because if the other influencers are buying followers and buying engagement, you're going to look small if you don't do it as well. And the end result is that if somebody's running these campaigns, they don't know what they're doing, they look at influencers and just look at vanity metrics like number of followers, you're going to end up getting poor results. And if you can't explain it, then your go-to answer is going to be influencer marketing doesn't work, or micro-influencers are a scam.
Very well said. And with that, Gil, I have no other thoughts other than what you just said. I think you punctuated the kind of the statement extremely well. By the way, and I mentioned them a few times, we use HYPR to check out all the influencer profiles. They got demographic data, they got engagement data, which is very important for micro-influencers, and they're cross-platform, all the different channels. So check them out in the link below. Gil, how do people get a hold of you?
I'm at gil@hyprbrands.com, HYPRBrands.com.
Okay, and if you disagree with us, if you've had experience with micro-influencers, please say so in the comments. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube watching this, we want to know what your experience is, and I'd love to kind of showcase that in future episodes. So Gil, again, thank you, and look forward to the next episode.
Likewise.